Coming to you from the Apogee Grafix studios, this is the Business and Beyond podcast on Next Gen Media. I'm Ashton.
And I'm Tony.
What's going on?
Man, I look forward to these days. When you have long, hard weeks, I look forward to the end of the week when we jump in the studio and we get to almost let out. You know, it's like our punching bag we have the show is, and we can let out all the stresses from the week.
When I'm texting you, we should talk about this, I get in a mode, man, I'm going to vent on the show. And then for some reason, this is like therapeutic and relaxing. And I forget, no, I want to be angry and vent about something. And then I'm just, what was I going to talk about? But I could see you if you're watching on YouTube. I noticed, my wife's been doing it for the last 2 days. My eyes are up here, Tony. You're just looking at this area. Yes, I did shave. The beard will be back soon. Relax, people. But you look, and you said long. I'm like, you're talking about my hair, aren't you? Oh my, you're just looking straight down.
Yeah.
It's hard, yeah.
It's not right.
Well, stubble's already back. It's only been a day and a half since. I'll have my beard back for the next episode for the most part. But elephant in the room, sorry.
But yeah,
the thunder there.
If people haven't caught on now in a year that everything we talk about is not just stuff we're just throwing out there. It's actually like day-to-day things that we go through, day-to-day things that our friends go through. Today we were talking about before the show, a good friend of mine that is a big show listener and follows what we talk about and teach. He was telling me about how motivating episode 30 was for him, and how he's going all in. And if you haven't listened to episode 30, go check that one out, because that really was a good show. I mean, the information we gave, I feel like all of our shows are good, but that one especially was a lot of good information, and it kind of changed the way you think of your side hustle. But when I was talking to him, he's just so motivated, and he's gone all in this year, and made a huge investment in his business because of that show. He's made that big push, and that's kind of what we want to talk about today was what kind of investments people are making in their business and what sacrifices they're willing to make. And are you setting up your employees to be successful in your business?
Yeah, and if you follow us on social media or follow me particularly, you may know that I wasn't exactly broadcasting it, but I have a new job now. I don't work for the lumber company anymore. I work for a company called Paradigm now. I'll go ahead and just tell you everything in this episode. I don't like necessarily talking about it, or not like I don't like talking about it, but that's not what this is about. But my full-time job, I'm now a business development manager at a software company called Paradigm. And there's still ties to the building industry in there, that at least in my position. But
so you're not completely. This isn't like a redevelopment of yourself. This is like a step up into a different level.
This is definitely a step up. That's what I've been wanting to do since I got my CDL 7 years ago. Is nothing against driving. I enjoy driving, but if I would have known that that's what I'm doing for the rest of my life, I would hate it.
Yeah.
So my goal was to get into a company and work my way up. I thought that was going to be a trucking company, moving up to a dispatcher and all that good stuff. But I've worked for a couple different lumber companies driving, and that's when I started at Foxworth. And I drove for a few months, and then I moved into the office, into sales support, and then I moved into outside sales. And I was recruited by this company because of my experience in outside sales. And there's a lot of things that go hand in hand, a lot of similarities. But the reason we're talking about it is for the last few weeks we've done, it's an orientation process. They call it onboarding. And not just my position. There is a graphic designer in that same class with me. There's a legal analyst, I guess you call it, a creative writer. There are all kinds of people that work. They just bunched us all together, about 9 or 10 of us. And all this is remote. I'm a remote worker. So we were doing all on Microsoft Teams because this company's in Wisconsin. And obviously we're here in Texas. And basically we just had video chats, I guess you would call it, little classes with different people within the company. Mostly 30-minute classes. Some have nothing to do with my position. We just got a little overview of this, a little overview of that. just kind of learn how it runs. And
But
then
it gives you a little bit of insight on what other departments do and
Yeah,
other people within the company do,
and
what
then
their
the-
responsibilities are.
and in the classes that really did pertain to my job, they were in it too, but it was just like a 30-minute overview, which I liked because it gives you just enough information where you're absorbing it and you're kind of wanting more. You're waiting for that. And then they have other classes like a deep dive into this, but that's just that's your specific job or whatever. But that's all we did. You know, they didn't expect us just to go out and start developing business or anything. They were just like, make calls, things like that, but we're just here to learn. This is what we're doing. And then we had lunches. It was pretty cool. They have a Grubhub account set up, and then certain days, there were about 4 days that they put a credit in there, and I'd order my lunch, and we'd have a lunch meeting. Like there'd be a bunch of us all just eating. It's kind of weird for me, just people you never had.
Eating.
You're like on the camera, and like people are trying to take a bite and be done.
Yeah.
And I use this camera that we're using for the podcast, so it's a wide angle.
Yeah.
Everyone's on a laptop camera, which is like this much.
Yeah.
You look watch on YouTube. But it's like wide. It's everything.
Yeah.
Obviously, with the liquor cart in the back, I blurred my background. It worked great. But yeah, we're eating, and then like today, our lunch was with the CEO of the company. It was pretty cool. He just like asked me whatever you want. We asked him so many random questions, and I'd say it's a fairly big company. Maybe I want to say 300 people working, mostly in the U.S. There's people in Egypt and India, a few, but it's not a huge company, but it's not incredibly small where,
No.
Of course, if you're a company of 20 people, the owner or CEO is very accessible, but he's like, they use Microsoft Teams a lot. If you're not used to that, there's video calls, regular calls, chats, everything like that. And he's like, just ping me is what he calls it. Just send me a message in chat, whatever. I'm, here to talk to whoever, whatever issues you have. I thought that was pretty cool. And, I'm not going to specifically mention other companies, but past companies just haven't had that
No, you're right. And
training process.
let's go back, man. So they coined the term onboarding. I love that term.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that as of, usually it's orientation is what, I love that onboarding, that term. Yeah. I'm going to have to take one that. I have to use that one.
And it's crazy.
The thing is, like, they're willing to invest. And how long did you go through this onboarding process?
3 weeks. And
So
then
a 3-week
technically
process-
technically it's a 4 week, but they're not, the fourth week you're kind of doing your own thing, and then you have a couple of little meetings checking it. But really the first week's just constant meeting after meeting after meeting. It's not not that exhausting.
Expectation of you to produce at this time. It's just
no, really, you
strictly-
couldn't. You really couldn't because you didn't understand how their system works. They give you just a little bit of information because you're not going to have a 3-hour class on what you're doing.
Yeah.
You have a 30-minute overview with everyone's in, and then you have little breakout meetings, and then there was another deep dive that's about an hour, and then another deep dive that's about an hour on certain different things. There were about 4 or 5 different classes that pertained to me, but it was like just enough information where you absorbed what you got. And then you're like, okay, thinking about wanting more. You already understand that, so now we're going to talk about this. Rather than just doing 3 hours, here's your,
a crash course.
I've had, although most companies I've started at, it was, I was a driver, or whatever. There's only so much to learn, but it's like a half-day orientation, and then you jump in with a trainer for a day or two. It's like, but what was crazy is we also talked to, if you want to call him the instructor, who was leading the meetings in different fields. Like we met the legal person, which actually, that wasn't even the worst meeting. That was pretty interesting. Hearing about the legal stuff. It was kind of scary too. Like, it was basically keeping information secure. Like, if you accidentally send something with information on it, just come clean. You're not going to get in trouble. It's when you try to hide it. And it's kind of scared the crap out of me a little bit. Not, you're like, shit. They talked about a Google guy, the guy from Google who, developer went and sold stuff to Uber, and then all these lawsuits, and he was in prison and fined $1 million something, lost stock option, but that was intentional. It's different. But and I, at my position, I don't think I would have any sense of information. It's a software company. There's a lot of development and coding. They have all their own software, their own programming. So it's nothing I would be in on, but it's talking about like accidentally forwarding an email. It's like, I've never been told anything about that. who cares about the information that I have?
Yeah.
You just have to worry about pricing is all I've ever, cared about.
Yeah.
But I talked to somebody in legal,
But you
graphic
understood
design.
now
Yeah.
that something you didn't understand could be a potential. Now you do understand that, even if it never directly affects you. That's something
you
you
understand
learned.
what everyone
Yeah.
goes through. The worst one was probably an hour and a half class about coding and contracts that had nothing to do with me. Just went way over my head. I'm not. I like to say I'm pretty tech savvy, unless Patrick's listening. Obviously not to his level, but like I'm a millennial. I'm tech savvy. Then you go work for a software company. You're not tech savvy.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, you do this. Like, hold on, back up. How did you open that? Like turning on your computer on and off. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was about coding, and it was way over my head. And that's when I'm like, okay, let me turn my camera off. I might start dozing off. But you met HR people, you met this person, that, and every single person, like, okay, y'all have any questions? No questions? Okay, do y'all have any questions that don't pertain to this? Anything at all about working for the company? Whatever. And they said, okay, I'm going to send y'all a quick message on Teams about this meeting, but now y'all have my information. Ask me anything, anytime about whatever. And that's what's like, I can't fail here. If I fail, it's all on me because they've set me up to succeed. They can't, if I say, well, I didn't know that, or I didn't know about this, well, that's on me because they give you every opportunity to ask questions.
Or they gave you all the contacts to every department that you could reach out to and ask somebody a question.
Yeah. I talked to somebody just about every major department you could think of, sub-department. They gave us I guess everybody had a different one, just some random person who volunteers to kind of be, they call it a buddy. It's like, okay, one day you have a lunch with your buddy, and it's going to be something way away from what you're doing. It wasn't a manager or salesman or anything like that. Not marketing, I can't remember what he was in. But anyway, so we just had a meeting, and he's like, okay, this is my perspective. You got questions, It was pretty cool. It's like, yeah, just message me anytime you want. Which I understand a lot of companies, especially if they're smaller, have open door policies like that. It's not hard to get a hold of somebody and ask questions.
Yeah.
But I've had quite a bit of questions, not in meetings, like when they say, hey, you have a question, it's like, oh man, I forgot to ask about this. Something about benefits, something about payroll, something about anything. And I go, oh yeah, it's this person. I message them, within a couple of hours, I have an answer. They have no problem answering it. It's not, okay, I have to go to my boss, and then he's got to go to this person.
Yeah. No, you can go direct to. They've opened that up where you can go
Yeah,
direct to.
and I had an issue at Foxworth. Not to bash on Foxworth, they're a great company. It really wasn't my issue, but like I said, I want to get in a company and move up. And I made that clear with the boss, who was my manager then, and he put me in touch with the head of HR at Foxworth. So I had a relationship with her. I talked to her more than once. And there was an issue with reimbursement on a paycheck where I don't even remember the issue, but I messaged her, said, hey, no big deal, but this happened. And I was a little confused on the details, and it went up the chain. And I just went directly to her, didn't even think about anything, but it went up pretty far up the chain. And that person didn't like that they were asked about that, because they're, too big for that, I guess. I don't know. So they, in turn, talked to my manager at our yard and asked why he wasn't dealing with it. Why did I go over his head? And really, he got in trouble. I didn't get in trouble. But I was thinking, I didn't go over anyone's head. I just know she's the point of contact, so I asked her about it. And she had a question, so she asked some,
Yeah.
But it's not like that here. They tell us, no one's going over everybody's head. You have an issue, ask them.
Yeah.
Whoever is pertained to that, because, my sales manager doesn't want to hear about, hey, I have an issue with my paycheck. He didn't care about that.
Yeah.
He said, call her, But back to investing, that's kind of where it comes to. I'm not going to fault a company for just giving certain orientations, because
what you just went through with this orientation is in complete contrast to what I would say more has to be more than 50%. I don't really know the statistics, so I don't want to throw it out, but it has to be more times than not you don't get that type of in-depth training.
Yeah,
I mean,
and it's hard.
I've been in companies where you're thrown to the wolves. From day one, you're thrown out there, let's see what you can do. And then we'll come back down and see. Well, let's test your level. And then wherever you fail, that's what we'll come back down to, and we'll start there. You know what I mean? Instead of starting down here and maybe it's, oh, I know that, I know that, I know that. It's, let's see how high you can go, and when you fail, then we'll come back and...
Yeah, and it's hard to...
So they essentially set you up to fail, and then they'll come back in and build you back up later.
And I started as a driver at Foxworth. So I've never, to talk about the orientation part, I've never had an orientation at a company of the level of position I'm at now, because I was at Foxworth for so long, and I worked my way up throughout the company.
Yeah.
But the training perspective, I can say I've never been at a company with this level of training. Outside of, CDL driving, but that's a completely different animal.
Mm-hmm.
Making sure you train. Like, I did go through a 1 month training process in my first driving job. That would be within a driving job. You sit with a driver, a trainer for a month, but that's driving a freaking semi-truck, which is not easy until you've done it for a while. But I can tell you at past companies, moving in different positions, it was kind of like I moved there because there was a need for it and we were already behind. So it's like, okay, they're going to teach you how to do one aspect of this, the easiest thing. Sort of at Foxworth, receiving trucks in, the easiest thing. So you just work on that, and then we'll just add stuff to you. Okay, now we're going to enter tickets. You have questions, ask me. I'll show you the minimum.
It's basically on-job training.
Yeah, and the guy that trained me when I went into sales support did a great job. He trained me, but it's not like he was my trainer. He was just the guy in that position. Yeah. And when I moved into outside sales, I wish I would have added more of a program. It was kind of like, although it was planned I was going to move into outside, we've been working on it for 6 months to a year. Like, that's where I was moving into.
Yeah.
And so it's like, here's a list of your responsibilities. Go over it, figure out where your strengths are, things like that. Ask questions, and then go.
Yeah.
And then there was another salesman at the yard that had been there for 30 years. So he's a great resource, but it's not like they set up a program like he's going to train you. It's like, hey, just go with it. You have questions, ask him.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. But sometimes you don't have those questions until you're knee deep in it, figuring it out. It's like, man, I think I screwed up, and you go through it.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, here's what you do, which is great. And sometimes you have to learn that way.
Yeah.
Certain things. But it's like, nobody went through these scenarios with me. I just went.
But there are a lot of aspects of that you can be taught, and can at least set the groundwork or the roadmap for that situation, for something like that to arise. And most companies don't do that. It's just kind of, do it, kind of fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Fake it till you make it, and when something happens, then we'll step in and help you out.
Yeah.
And when you were telling me about that, and it's been a couple weeks, when you first started, you told me, hey, I'm going through this sort of time. I'm like, really? Like, it blew me away that a company would go ahead and invest 3 weeks of time into someone with no expectations on return yet. They're solely setting you up and training you to be successful in their company.
Yeah, in fact, I think it was last week, near the end of my second week, I just had my boss had a chat with me. It was just me and him on a video, just checking in. And I said, yeah, I've been making some calls. They said, really? You've already started making calls? I'm like, well, I had a 4-hour gap this afternoon with nothing scheduled. Like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah.
So it's like, I thought that's what you wanted me to do because I had an understanding of it. I can start, But that's what it is investing. Investing sounds like this brilliant word.
Mm-hmm.
It's full of wisdom. Yeah, you invest. That's what you're supposed to do. What do you want to talk about? Investing money in the stock market, investing in yourself, physical, mental, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But to invest, it's making a sacrifice.
Yep.
It's like saving money or something like that. Which is an investment. To invest in the stock market, you have to put some of your money aside.
There's risk to investment.
Risk. Well, yeah, there's risk because, hey, you're putting all this time, effort,
and you
money,
don't know
whatever.
What you're going to get.
You don't know what you're going to get. But that's why it's almost worse than sacrifice. You're sacrificing and risking it. So you're taking $5,000 you could use on whatever you want. You have it sitting in savings because it's safe. But you want to invest it, yeah, it's risking it. We invest money. You and I have, we're not really worried about that because we're not real. I mean, in certain accounts, we have certain accounts that's it's going to go up no matter what.
Yeah.
It may be slower, faster at some point, but that's our nest egg. That's what's going to happen.
Yeah.
But that's I mean, I could take money out of it and use it if I wanted to, but putting it there is sacrificing. I'm not using that money. I earn that money and I'm not using it. It's like putting in savings or investing. That's what investment is. companies investing in their employees, or you investing, if you want to work out every day or eat better to be healthier, or just read books. I enjoy reading, but you're taking time away from watching TV or spending time with your family or video games or whatever. We're investing in ourselves in this podcast, although we enjoy it. But, sometimes you're like, we have a show tonight. Amberly rolls her eyes sometimes. Ashley rolls her eyes like...
There is a time and at sometimes a monetary investment we have to put into the show as well, with little to no return on the show. So...
Exactly.
But there isn't... obviously there isn't...
But people ask us, why?
Yeah.
You're not getting anything out of it.
And that's what I was talking about. My friend that I talked to today, we talked about this a little bit, and I can't explain why, but we just know why.
Well, we can go back to the very beginning. I promise you, the reason we started was probably, you go back and look, was more of a selfish reason than it is now. A completely different reason now.
Yeah.
We can talk about why we started this, really. Obviously, some stuff's still the same, but the reason you came up with the idea is complete. We don't even think about that right now.
Yeah.
And obviously it's humbled us, things that, like you were talking about with
But that can
our
come
listener.
back to the investment we put into it. We invested thinking one thing, and the return we're getting is so much more than we could have ever dreamed of.
And going back, like I'm saying...
And with that said, I didn't mean to cut you off, but...
No, you're good.
That investment, when you put that investment in your employees, you put that investment in your company, you don't always know what that return's going to be. You just hope that it's good. And a lot of times, the right investment does turn around to be so much more than you thought it would be.
I know that's even better that you said that before I talked about this. So we're not bashing any companies. Some companies don't have resources.
Right, exactly.
It is an investment. It is a risk. You can't start comparisons.
Yeah.
If you could, go talk to your significant other, there's somebody better in this world that they may enjoy being with you better. And if you're married, obviously that's not an option. But there could be someone like if they met this person somewhere in the world, they're smarter, they're taller, better built, make more money, and they may be genuinely better people than us. Like if you go start comparing things, not to call anybody, pieces of crap. That sounds pretty depressing. But
when you look at
you've heard your whole life, there's always somebody better.
The grass is always greener on the other side.
If you think there's somebody better, I'm not saying end your relationship and go after that person. I'm saying if they would have happened to start with that person, comparisons are, very skewed.
They're subjective.
Exactly. They're subjective. So saying, bashing other companies because they're not to this level is completely different. A software company that I work for sells services for their programs. There's not products they have to buy, not buy and then sell products, not goods.
Yeah.
There's not things they have to build. They build websites, but they're not as much labor intensive as like, okay, I have to buy this material and then I build it and I sell it for more than I. So there's more room in there for margin, so they probably earn more money that way that they can reinvest.
Yeah.
But that's why it's investment. It's not saying, hey, you're a bad company for not doing this, for not, you can't say you're bad for not investing. Yes.
But, yeah, like you said, you can't compare. You can't look and say, well, those guys are doing it better. No. But you could look over there and say, man, those guys, they've got it figured out. Maybe I could take just a little bit of that and use that as an investment to my company. Because, for me, in my company or any other businesses, I wouldn't look and be like, man, I can invest 3 weeks. 3 weeks? Yes, I'm going to invest 3 weeks of training. Yeah, I can't afford to do that. You know what? But I could probably invest 3 days.
Especially if you're a small business, because if you're hiring somebody, there's obviously a need for it. It's not like, hey, just for shits and giggles, let's hire somebody.
Yeah.
Of course, bigger companies do that too, but obviously they have more resources. But they're set up for that. We can go all day long about X or Y company. Or let's say that's weird. A or B company, not Y company. A company or B company. Why they do things a certain way. You can argue, well, if they did it this way, they could be set up to do that. Mm-hmm. But if they're hiring for something in need, especially like when I moved into sales support, there was one guy doing it. It was a 2-person job, and he was up to his eyeballs in work and behind. So now you're telling him, okay, stop what you're already behind on and train this guy to do it.
Yeah.
And so I guess maybe, I'm to brag and say my work ethic helps because I had to be in there learning stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Because more recently, before I quit that job, they hired somebody else, and he just wasn't worth it because the other person couldn't be on him all the time. Hey, do this, do that, do that.
Yeah.
They had to train him, and it's, he was, doing a lot of this if you're watching on YouTube, just sitting on his phone. And there's a lot of that sometimes, especially when you're being trained. You're like, okay, he's busy, he's going to go do that, just chill for a little bit. But, you can blame companies on it for not being set up to do that, but
Yeah, they don't all have the resources, but there still is some fault. I mean, it creates a lot of stress for the employee when there's not proper training, because I've been in those situations, and it is a very stressful situation when you don't have all the answers, you haven't been trained, when you've been just thrown to the wolves, your feet to the fire. I don't want to use the word toxic. I mean, it doesn't create a toxic, but it just...
There could be a toxic work environment without
creates,
toxic people.
It creates disdain in the way you look at the company at times, and the way you feel how they set you up.
There can be a lot of great people working in your company, and you don't have to say, okay, this person's toxic or doing this. Just the way things are. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, the system's set up wrong, but everyone has good meaning. Yeah. But they're busy. Hey, we can't talk about that. We're too busy to, game plan and change everything, to a large extent. But you could also make arguments like, well, you should have those people in place. Like, you should have, whatever the rule of thumb is, have so many more people than you actually need for, hey, people are going to take a vacation, people are going to call in sick. You want to be able to bring on more work. Now, past companies would do it different than this company does, or at least the way they say it does. I'll give the benefit of the doubt. I've only been here for 3 weeks. Let's see how it works out. But they tell us we going to use Salesforce as the CRM, customer relationship, as a CRM, and basically that's how they know when stuff's coming down the pipes. They don't want to sign a contract and say, hey, by the way, we signed this contract. Can your service team do this? No, they want us to let them know in advance. They say, well, we may need to hire more people if you have a lot coming. You're going to hire more people because I have a lot coming? Like, yeah, that's what it's for. They want to be able just to hire people on the spot if they can. Mm-hmm. They always want to be, I forget the number you use, but they want to be a certain percentage ahead, more than they need.
Than what you need. Yeah.
And
how many companies have you worked for that do that? There's companies that they'll allow you to get this far behind before they even consider hiring.
A company I've worked for, because I'm going to stop bashing on one, I'm just going to say a past company I've worked for has systems in place for that. You fill out a sales report. That's kind of what it's for. This is what I have going in the works. Significant things that have happened. But there's been debates joking around between the salesmen if they even read that. One salesman would type in, you ever watched the Lego movie? The song Everything is Awesome? Because that was his saying. He just when stuff went wrong, he'd just yell out, everything is awesome, just being sarcastic. He started typing that into that. And then one salesman just started typing random stuff, not even sales stuff. And nobody said anything for a couple of months. We do this once a week. And they finally said, you need to stop doing that. It's like, I thought you were reading them every day or every week. So they say that's what that's for, but they're not even reading it. Obviously, it's not, because they're not keeping it up at any level.
Yeah.
Absolutely every level. Pulling material, deliveries, sales support. They're just not keeping enough people hired, and I get people quit. You have lazy people call in sick, especially at certain levels, to get up to a certain level of an employment, you have to have certain work ethic and things like that. So, the more lowly positions have more people that take advantage of that. And you're like, we'll just hire more people. Well, we can't. It's not in our budget. How's it not in your budget? Are you paying this guy for taking 50 sick days a year?
Yeah.
So, again, you're not going to bash the company. Like, when you talk in everybody's specific role, what they say makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it needs to be an overall change. It's not one person, screwing everything up.
Yeah. So, through all of this, has the new company outlined expectations?
Yeah.
Because that's a big thing.
And they put expectations up in my contract when we signed it. They said, this is your base salary. This is what we expect you to sell. If you sell it, great. And maybe first year you may not do it, but this is what we expect you to sell. If you sell this is your total, and this will be your bonus or whatever. all that good stuff. So I had expectations from day one. I knew year wide for the year what my expectations were.
So you know when you're on pace to meet those, or if you're behind, or you understand that from day one. Essentially, you.
Yeah, I mean, Foxworth did do that good. They broke it down 12 months. This month. This is what we expect you to do. At first, the goal was a lot lower the first months. But meeting those didn't really mean anything. That's just your pace. Your goal is for the year.
Yeah.
Excuse me. There, they don't really have it broken down. I mean, obviously, I'm not. You take a 3-month period in my first few months, and a 3-month period at the end of the year. Ideally, that 3 months is going to be a lot more productive than, say productive. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it before you actually get to certain levels. But that 3 months, money-wise, is going to show that it's more productive than the first. So obviously, it's not, you break down your goal into 12 months, it's not, in your first year anyways, it's not going to be realistic.
And I think that's super important and especially the business owners listening, is it's very important to set those expectations. Probably just about every company that I worked for, those expectations weren't outlined clearly. And it made, even at my most recent, it's, you think you're doing really good, and then it's like, yeah, I mean, that's okay. You're like, oh, well, then what's good? And then it's like, well, I mean, it's good. It's like there's never any, well, this is where you want. Okay, in 6 months, I've sold a little over $1 million worth of work, written on over $1 million worth of work.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, that's pretty good. Like, okay, well, then what's really good? Like, what is the expectation? But when you still can't get those expectations, it becomes very frustrating to know if you're earning your keep. Yeah, because anyone that really cares, they want to make sure that the numbers add up and you're earning your keep. People that don't care, okay, we'll just sit back and we'll see how long we can ride this thing out.
Yeah, I could tell you if you're a custom home builder of a certain size that, okay, this many houses per however long, I can tell you it's good or not. I can tell you if you're a lumber salesman how much you should sell in a year, realistically, depending on your experience. But expectations and goals are completely different because, they take into account what the current climate is. Mm-hmm. At first, with all the Corona stuff, in 2020, there was a lot more, your numbers were up a lot higher because pricing went up. And so you still had that margin there, and people were okay with it at the time. And they like, okay, we just got to go with it. We can't just shut our doors right now and take a break. They were just going with it. So numbers were inflated. It looked like a really good year. And it was for a lot of companies. Then that margin caught up with them and prices are up and we're not making a whole lot of money on this. And there's a lot of smaller companies that are saying, I'm not building another house this year till prices come down. Yeah. And now stuff starts happening. So it's unrealistic to, okay, you say, let's just say $2 million for a salesman. This is your goal to sell lumber. Now maybe you were set up to do that, and because everything was inflated, you sold $2.5 million. That was a really good year. Now next year they'll probably up your goal, but you have to keep it realistic. Now it's over $2 million or over 2.5. Yeah. But now people are stopping. They're losing business not only because people have to shut their doors or just take a break, but lumber's hard to get, so things are slowing down. Prices are outrageous. You can't keep employees in, just random things. You can set goals, and then you can have excuses, and that's fine. But just saying, yeah, you should be selling this much. I don't care what all that is, Of course, the salesman can use those excuses all he wants, but it's good to have them on the table and understand what's going on. Mm-hmm. You don't be hard-headed and just say, well, screw you, you should sell this much. That's what you sold last year. Yeah. Have those expectations, but flip it over on the other side. Yeah. As a manager, you want those expectations for your salesman because you could be screwing around. Yeah. You're a salesman. Like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that. I thought I was doing, being a dick. Yeah. Like, well, no, this is this is what I expect of you. Yeah. Because there's a lot of people who can be really successful, but they test those limits. Mm-hmm. If you tell them this is their goal, they'll get that goal, and then they're just they'll do the minimum, and that's okay. But it's what's their goal?
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. No,
And you're not going to get, a sales team force that are all Mark Cuban or all entrepreneurial, have entrepreneurial spirits. You're going to have some jack-offs, but
yeah,
as long as, they can do the job, that's all that really matters.
yeah, and yeah, you're right. You're going to have that level, but and for those, the expectation probably isn't as much, like I was saying, that they're just going to show up and just work, right? They're just going to do bare minimum to get by. But it's the ones that have that little bit of entrepreneurial spirit. You want to make sure you cater to them and really set goals, even if they're unobtainable goals. Set something for them, some margin that they can try to achieve, so that they can at least gauge themselves and know where they're at.
Yeah.
Because for someone like me, that's really important. I want to know on the spectrum, where do I hit and where do I fall? And where am I at, for the year?
Because things like that get boring. I mean, in my first year selling lumber at Fox Gal, they had, sales bonuses for me to reach throughout the year. But that was just because it was my first year. You don't get sales bonuses, which is weird. Salesmen after that don't get sales bonuses. They have a yearly goal.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, they didn't even break it down by month sometimes. It's like, what am I doing? Like, I can break it down myself and say, okay, this is my goal. But sometimes it can get boring.
Yeah.
Without, having that little, you can't just look at a yearly goal in January and be motivated by it. Well, maybe in January, but once February, March, you're not even close to that. It can seem insurmountable, especially when you have a bad month.
Yeah.
Especially in an industry like me where January and February are slow months. So that's why it helps to have it broken down. You're just reaching for little short goals because it can be easy to get burnt out.
Yeah, build the snowball effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just like that. A Dave Ramsey quote or term about paying off debt could be the same thing, be insurmountable. You're like, okay, just pay this one down, and pay this one down, and then do those little short goals.
Yeah. Man, so we are almost to May, which is a big month.
A lot of birthdays in our family.
I have my two older kids' birthdays are May. They're actually just like,
what are they?
4 days apart. No, the 11th and 14th. 3 days apart.
And then mine is the 23rd.
So we always typically get together.
13th. 23rd, yeah.
To make it easy for our family, we get together and do one birthday for the three of the kids. And just try to do a nice birthday bash.
That's what I'm planning right now. I am on Hawk's event rental service on his website right now, looking at little, not bounce houses, water slides.
Water slides, yeah.
Yeah, water slides.
Yeah, so which one are we looking at? The bite size?
Yeah.
So we want to get that one booked.
So on his website, you can see if you're looking to plan a party or do a kids party, you just click on here, go to book, click on book to book it, and it just has on his website just has these different options. Shows you pick your date. Ours is going to be May 8th. And you scroll down, and it shows you which ones are available that day. You click on it. Let's see how easy this is. Then you have a bunch of information to fill out. It's on my computer, so I can just click, and it'll fill it all out for me. I agree with that. So all I want to do is what happens when I hit continue. Whoop. Confirmation. And I just got an email on my phone. From Hawk's Event Rentals. I did not expect it to be that quick.
And now it pulls up.
I don't have it.
It has your receipt pulled up.
Yeah. So really, how long did that take? 30 seconds?
Yeah. No.
Very easy. Obvious. Like I'm sitting here, you could pull up this podcast when you're doing it, but you wouldn't need me to walk you through it.
Yeah, no, this is so easy. Yeah, it pulls up. There's your Pay Now button. You can print off your
receipt.
thing.
QR code too. Also, up with the times. And Anthony is. So
so that's awesome. You gotta.
That was easy.
Check out Anthony's.
So right in the middle of our podcast, I just scheduled that. I booked that particular water slide and picked the date.
Pick the one we wanted. Pick the date. It's all set up. You can check out Anthony's Facebook page, Hawk's Event Rental.
It's all in the description box.
Services. I'm trying to find his website. I don't want to chop this. So it's
It's on the Facebook.
It's on the
I saw it,
Facebook,
yeah.
but it's
That's how I got to it.
HawksEventRentalServices.com. Yeah, you can click
It was
the
that
link
quick too,
right
because
there.
when we jumped into this, I jumped on there and went to Facebook.
Yeah, it pulls it up here. Yeah, I'm looking at this. Man, what a great looking website here.
Especially if you're having a kids party, but really any party. I mean, he caters more to children's parties because he has the water slides, the gaming truck, the gaming trailer. But
and he's adding, guys,
and everything you need, man.
He is continuing
tables,
to
chairs.
tables, chair rentals. He has a cotton candy machine. You can just purchase the cotton candy alone from him as an add-on, just like pre-bucketed cotton candy.
He's just like your party planner, man.
Yeah.
You have a kids party coming up soon.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Just get with them. I mean, you can give them a call. You can reach out to him on Facebook. You can book directly.
Everything but the cake, but that may be coming soon.
Hey, you know what?
He listens.
Don't tempt him.
He
Don't
listens.
tempt Anthony. He will have cakes
Speaking
coming
of
next
investing,
week.
he definitely
I can
invests
tell
in
you
his
what he would
company.
do.
He may get a baker.
He would go out and find. You're right. He'd go out and find a baker, someone that makes cakes. He would team up with them to
just do one-stop shop. I mean, no, trust me, that's something people want. They'll pay extra. Not that I'm saying he charges extra. I don't throw a lot of parties. I don't, have a lot of comparisons. But, people just, they don't want to have to, okay, now you got to call the guy, get the cotton candy machine ready. Go call the table, go check on the tables and chairs, make sure those work. What about the water slide, All on here. There were other options on here, on this website. Hey, do you want to book it? It reminded me, would you like to do this? Would you like to do this? Would you like, I was like, no, I just want the water slide. And
It's
only
easy,
because there's only
convenient.
going to be a few of us. We're not throwing a huge party. If there were, we would definitely be getting tables and chairs from them. But it reminds you of it. So maybe you jump on there because all you know about is the water slides. And he's going to remind you, hey, check out this, check out this.
So
very simple.
Check him out on
easy.
Facebook, Hawks Event Rental Services, or his
You usually
website.
put the logo right.
Yeah, it'll be there.
If you're on YouTube.
HawksEventRentalServices.com, and let Anthony hook you guys up.
And he's been pretty busy. He's getting into the busy season, so make sure you go and book that. So we did it today.
Quick.
A couple weeks early.
A few of those were already booked up. You couldn't even.
Yeah.
You couldn't book them. So.
And we're talking about 2 weeks. I mean, that's not a whole lot of time, but for me it is. That's pretty far in advance, and make sure you get on there. If you have something coming up in April, do it now.
Yeah, you better get it fast.
Yeah.
And when you do that, let him know that you heard about it from the Business and Beyond podcast.
You won't get a discount,
no
but
discounts.
it helps. It helps.
But just let him know.
He'll let us know
that it is working, and that we have a partnership. Well, not a partner. I get a partnership. I mean, we're helping each other out.
But seriously, we don't want to be wasting our time doing stuff here if it's not working. Yeah. So it comes across that's working. If you buy whiskey because we're drinking it, this is TX. Is that what we're drinking?
Yeah, TX.
We like to know. Maybe you say, hey man, quit drinking whiskey. Y'all are idiots. It's not doing anything. I'm still gonna drink the whiskey. I care less.
Well, we have to now. We're distilling our own here.
Yeah. This is one. Is it distilling, aging, whatever you want to call it? Nothing crazy. It's right here in the studio, but my own. We'll drink that a little bit too. Indian Amber is what Patrick calls it.
Well, can you learn how to do that? Go to college and learn how to do that?
I don't know. Probably a trade school. Which, I don't know. Depending on what you want to do, trade schools may be a better option. I know right now, we'll put the link below. I read an article the other day saying nearly 50% of college graduates, recent college graduates, are unemployed.
50%.
And, that can be subjective.
Recent.
What is recent? You're talking about recent.
We're talking 10 years, 5 years.
And
this year.
If you go to college, depending on what degree you have, you're not going to just take any job that you want, some people, 40, 50,000, maybe a lot of money. That's a pretty solid job.
But when you had 40, 50,000
more. If you go to school and, you're being told that you should be making this, millennials are kind of in that generation of wanting to have what their parents have and just they just see what they have and thinking that's the level I want to.
They didn't realize what it took, what the sacrifice in years
you're
took
supposed to sacrifice
to get there. Yeah,
you're supposed to have a lot of
just that degree alone isn't going to
rice and sausage, or beans and sausage for dinner. A lot of
rice and beans.
Not eating out. A lot of sacrifice.
Yeah,
or investment, I guess you could say. Like that's
Yeah.
kind of the theme tonight. But that's, you know, because it's a headline, you know, clickbait. But yeah, recent is kind of mean, like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, if you're going to say, okay, yeah, recent
But
graduates within the last 6
can-
months, well, of course they.
We can
probably
all
have a
agree
job,
that that's been a problem for a long time.
yeah,
That you go to college, you spend a fortune on a degree, a lot of time, and you come out after 4 years and you expect just to walk into a high-paying job because that's what we were told as kids. I mean, we were part of that generation that was pushed. You have to go to college. If you don't go to college, you're going to be nothing in life.
yeah.
And, I mean, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but you and I are in as good or better positions than a lot of people we know that
Yeah.
went.
I wish I wouldn't have gone to college because now I just have a bunch of debt and I'm obviously in a position that didn't help at all.
And I looked out. I had scholarships enough to go to a smaller community college, and all of it was paid for. It didn't cost me a dime out of pocket.
Mm-hmm.
But when it was coming around to that time, hey, you're gonna have to pay for this, and I didn't have a plan for it, and you're gonna have to go get student loans. They're easy, no big deal.
So
you can go get a student. I mean,
you can't get a $20,000 or even $10,000 loan to start your own business at 18.
Mm-hmm.
You can get a $100,000 student loan.
Yeah.
Well, okay, it's
You
not be
could-
$100,000 at
No.
first, but whatever the semester is.
You would have a better time being approved for a student loan than you would to buy a house.
Yeah. Probably right now, even with this epidemic going.
Yeah.
Of student loans, and now it's coming to realization. Not only expecting to have that job, maybe some are just taking the first job they can find, but they're having to get second jobs and side hustles just to pay for
Yeah.
the loans.
And don't twist it. I don't want the listeners to think that we're bashing college. We're
not
completely
anti-college.
we're completely for now.
Okay, I was dramatic when I said I wish I didn't go to college. I did learn a lot of things, and I am more educated than I would have been. But I would rather not have the debt right now than to have gone to college because
well, and you
done
have to
nothing
look
for
at it
me.
in perspective. Where you're at now, did having that time in college did that put you further?
In my career, no, I mean, it was for a communications degree, so I mean, you can say, well, you learn to be a better communicator. I'm a great communicator, whether you want to say it's from that or not. I like to blame Toastmasters for that. I'm a great communicator from them, but
So that's the point. Is there's Toastmasters for that you didn't have to go. There's trade schools. There's smaller community colleges where you're not going to spend as much. You're not going to have to go into debt. You can afford to pay as you go.
yeah, it's a lot more complicated and a lot more work. But my wife got a degree from UTA, University of Texas Arlington, but she knew if she went to local community college for the first 2 years, it's the same classes, same credits. As long as you do your research and make sure the
Things
schools are
transfer,
sistered,
yeah.
no transfer. God knows how much she saved
By doing that.
by doing that and then transferring. But that is a lot of work. You have to be
Yeah.
on it to, okay, you do this. And
Well,
typically,
and it's also in the same
typically, community colleges are, let's say, easier classes. Probably easier classes, but there's a lot more resources there for you than at a big university.
Well, and it's also if you were to go through like a trade school or an apprenticeship program where you're going to have to put in the time, that's can be difficult. You know, think about any of the trades, electricians, plumbers, like irrigation. There's licensing for that.
CDL, getting your CDL license, a 4-week
any
school.
of that. There is an investment there, but there's also that a big time investment, much more so than the financial investment. But when you get through that, a lot of times you're gonna either you can get a lot of that financial investment paid for by the company you work for. A lot of companies will pay for you to go and get your licensing, to get journeyman license,
and pay you while you're doing
and pay you while you're doing it, and you get that on job training while you're going to school as well. So yeah, we're not bashing college
or student loans necessarily. I mean, you
Well,
have to go to
it's-
college to be a teacher, to be a doctor,
Absolutely.
to be a lawyer.
Absolutely.
But
be smart about what you do and know the return on investment.
yeah, and maybe those
If you're going
options
to
aren't
be a teacher
available.
and you're going to be okay with making whatever teachers at
Starting out
$40,000.
40, 45.
So
I
if you're
think.
okay with that, don't go spend $200,000 on a degree that does nothing for you. to only go and earn 45. That doesn't equate.
And no, I understand that. Most, you're saying, well, figure it out before you go to college. Like, that's not realistic just to know. Some people know what they want to do.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of teachers went to college and they didn't decide to be teachers till later. Like, hey, I have my bachelor's degree. I just have to go get certified to be a teacher. And,
it's better to have a plan than to jump in because college is so expensive now. And I think the reason for that is because the financial aid. It is so easy to become, to be qualified for money to go to school, and you can just put it on student loan, that the price of admission goes up. Because they can. They can continue to rise because they'll just keep approving you for a student loan.
And if you want to get into debate about college and student loans, there's just, we wouldn't have time for it. Where you need to start is, the colleges need to, it's just way overpriced.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an industry that would have to completely crumble to be able to fix itself.
And loans aren't necessary, student loans aren't necessarily a bad thing. I'm saying if your choice is to go to college, you go to college.
If you're going to be a doctor, lawyer, teacher, you have to go. I mean,
but don't go because you're supposed to go to college.
Yeah, don't graduate high school at 18 years old. We're asking kids at 18 years old to make a lifelong decision.
Just go to college. It doesn't matter. Go get a liberal arts
just
degree.
Go. Yeah, just exactly. Go get, what is it? Dave Ramsey I always thought it was funny. And go get a degree in left-handed puppetry. Don't go and get a meaningless degree. Don't, go to school for a reason. Have a reason. If you have to take 1, 2, 3 years off and figure yourself out, how many adults do you know that they went to college, they get out, they go have a career for a while, they change their mind, they go back to college to get another degree, and change. You're asking 18-year-olds to plan out their entire life and what they want to do at 18 years old.
Yeah.
And they're not prepared. They're not prepared to make those type of decisions. We will barely allow them to vote at 18, and you're saying,
why don't you let them drink?
They can't drink at 18, but you're going to say, hey, you know what? You should be able to make a decision on what you want to do for the rest of your life. We want you to make a decision on what you're going to be and what you're going to do. And me at 35, I don't even know if I have it in me to know exactly what I want to do from now until the time I retire.
Yeah.
I might change my mind.
And as a entrepreneur, small business podcast, go learn something and start a business. If you want, if you can. That's I've never met somebody who did that and is not successful today. Mm-hmm. Now maybe they don't still have the business they started. Maybe they failed and learned from it and failed again and built something. But I've never heard somebody just kind of miserable in a job and say, when I was 18, I should have gone to school, but I started my own business and it flaked out, and now I'm because theoretically you could go to college whenever you want. Yeah. Now, right now it would be hard for me to go to college. Once you get married, once you have kids, it's more difficult. And honestly, don't get stuck in the fact that people want to say you're an idiot because you don't have a degree. That's not a level of intelligence. Although there are people that college just doesn't work for them. Maybe they're not good at schoolwork. I think it was Einstein who says it. If you judge the intelligence of a fish, or if you test a fish on his ability to climb a tree, he's going to fail every time. Yeah. So some things just don't work.
That's not what he was made to be.
Yeah. You can go to college and prove something. Oh yeah, I'm smart enough to go to college. As somebody who would hire employees, if I see they go to college, that's great. But I think that you're self-motivated. You were able to go to college.
Have I been judged on having a 4-year degree ever? Never been judged on it.
But I'm not going to look at it like, oh, this guy's smart. He has a degree. Well, maybe if he has a degree from Harvard, I'm like, okay, that's a hard worker.
Yeah.
But if you have a degree, I think that more shows to a point that you're motivated and you can finish something. Because I took college classes. Some of them are pretty bogus. Mm-hmm. You can learn just as much on YouTube, or there are free classes. If you really want to learn something, EDX, Allison courses online. Well, you could take actual courses from universities. You don't get credit for it, but you can take them for free.
The iPhone comes with the Apple University. I probably deleted it. I don't even know where it's at.
Podcasts. You can learn whatever you want.
I do have it. It's under my education. So on this, even here, you can add courses, free courses from Apple that you can go through. On here, look, there's game theories, there's personal finance classes. I'm not going to sync all this, but like you can go through, there's free information there. Now, we're not saying, okay, you can be a doctor, you can go get all this free information and be a doctor. No, if you're going to be a doctor, you need to go to school and get your medical doctorate.
If your goal in life, if you're an entrepreneur and you're in high school, like, I just want to own my business. I don't care what it is, I want to own my business. Mm-hmm. You don't have to go to school to do that and get your MBA. And no, just learn how to start. Just start small.
You start it, and then you go hire the guy that has the MBA to work for you. That's the smart guys. You don't invest in it. You invest in getting the company going, and then you go hire all the people that went to college.
That was Elon Musk that did that.
Exactly.
Elon Musk talks about, I don't remember the quote, but it was like, I didn't go to Harvard, but the guys who work for me went to Harvard or whatever.
Exactly.
But that's what you do. If you don't know how to do something, look it up on YouTube, podcast it, or hire somebody. If it's not your strength, it's not your strength. Outsource it.
Now,
hire somebody for it. We talked about it.
We mention it. We talk about the, being an entrepreneur, and you have to be careful with that also. In the sense, we're huge entrepreneur supporters. You have to make sure that you're built for it, because being an entrepreneur it's very cliche now. Right? It's like it's the cool thing to do to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful,
especially with Elon Musk. And,
everybody sees that, and they want to be these
Gary
V. You have even Mark Cuban. You've got the Shark Tank thing blew up, and got a lot of people interested in doing that.
The thing about Gary V, if you actually listen to his podcast, he doesn't give a damn what you do. He's talking about, you want to be a stay-at-home dad. That's your goal. Do it.
Be the best stay-at-home dad ever.
Work the shit out of that.
Yeah.
Do whatever is you. Mm-hmm. And, just had to throw that in there. But, because we're not saying, it can get the mindset that, okay, we're the same people that say you're dumb if you don't get a college degree. Well, you're an idiot if you're not an entrepreneur. You're stupid if you do, you're not your own boss. Yeah. Which can have its benefits. It's not necessarily for everybody.
No.
We have full-time jobs.
I truly think, you have to be bred to deal with that. You have to be bred as an entrepreneur. You have to be able to take a punch in the face and get right back up, because it really is, and it becomes that cutthroat at times that you have to be willing to fail. And there's not a lot of people out there that are willing to fail.
That's why I think working in sales is kind of that 1 foot in entrepreneurship, but you're still in the safety. Mm-hmm. You still have the support of a company, because working in sales can be like that a lot of time. But you have more or less of a safety net than you do as an entrepreneur in your own business.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with wanting that security. Mm-hmm. You can run your own business on the side.
We're not knocking anyone that says, we've pushed back from episode 30. We said, okay, we're gonna, what if you rethink this? If you're running your own business, how about you make your business full-time, mm-hmm. and you go get a part-time to help sustain that, instead of having a full-time and just do your thing on the side. Let's flip that, right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of like, don't if having a full-time and just keeping this on the side is your thing, like if that's what works for you, don't listen to what we're saying. If that doesn't work for you and you're good with staying in your lane, working your 40 hours a week, and then on the weekends just doing your side hustle, do that. Yeah. We're not bashing either way. If you never wanted to take off and be like run that on your own, you always wanted to just be kind of a little side hobby that makes you some extra money, live it, kill it.
And that's okay.
Do the best and just throttle it to where you need it to be, to where it doesn't affect your full-time 40-hour-a-week job.
And you talking like that's very motivating, but don't misconstrue it that we're saying get your shit together. Like, it doesn't matter if you know what you're going to do.
No.
How many times have somebody have their full-time job and their side gig, and they're like, okay, I'm going to go do this full-time. Like, okay, it's not quite the right time. Let's go back and do this. And you just, okay. Or if you just get burnt out on something and move back or go forward. You mentioned that. Like, I was talking with my friend today. We had a nice long conversation today, man, just about life and business a lot. And it's a real motivational shit. But that's exactly what we talked about, is when... And we were both in that situation, and I've talked about it before, that I had my graphics and it failed.
and I went back into the work industry, put the graphics just completely on the back burner. Like, I didn't even think about it. Thought I was done with it, but I wasn't. Because once you go back, once you've been there, running your thing on your own,
Yeah.
and doing it full time, and then you go back, your mind never goes away from, man, what if? What was that? Like, what did I have there? So we just talked about that today, that once you go back, you'll see that your mind's always trying to get you to go back to doing your thing full time.
Yeah, because you're not going to regret something you did. You may regret that you didn't do it or didn't try. And luckily for you, it wasn't like some come to Jesus moment and you went broke or something like that. It was just like, okay, it's not working how I want it to work, so I'm going to go back over here. And there's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to be the success story
Sometimes
of Elon Musk or Gary Vee or anything like that.
I needed that maturity. I needed to mature and learn a little more about business. I was very young at that time of running my own business. I needed to mature and learn. And that was what we needed for me. Some people at 18 and 19, 20, and they can just keep going, and they can just stick with it. They know it. There's
a lot of sacrifice with that, too, that you don't see. You just see, that's pretty trendy. Like, he started his own business at 18. Now he's, it's, maybe listen to, I keep bringing it up, Gary Vee. He talks about, he didn't go out and party with his friends. He was at home memorizing prices of baseball cards to go trade and stuff. And that's how you build it. You sacrifice. And that's okay if you don't want to give up your life doing that. If you want to, work your way
that's something that people see in your success, but they don't see in your sacrifice. Is the passion you put into it, the struggle, the hard work, the failure. Nobody sees that. They only see what's in your success, not in your failures.
And they want to go do something like that, and as soon as they get their first failure or their first risk, you're like, okay, wait, I can't do that.
Yep.
I can't imagine that. And you need to look at the big picture. Take a step back and look. Now, as great as Dave Ramsey is and his Dave Ramsey University and everything he feels financially, you look back, it's a lot easier really to get a side hustle and make an extra $1,000 a month or so than it is to just save $1,000 and back up. Like, would you rather sacrifice that? Not going out to eat every night or doing this or whatever it is your thing is, or just get a side hustle and go. It's extra work. It's we're not saying you're not going to lose 2 or 3 hours of relaxation and family time every day, or maybe Saturdays. You're just chilling, playing video games, hanging out with your family. That's why it's investment. That's why it's sacrifice. You're investing in it. You're giving up something, taking one step back. To take 2 steps forward.
You're absolutely right, and that's what a lot of people don't see in it, and that's what you have to see in yourself, and you just have to know what you're built for. Everyone's got to stay. You hear it all the time. You got to stay in your own lane, and you do. You have to know what's right for you, what you're willing to sacrifice, what your abilities are, and stay in your lane. And take a chance once in a while if you want, but just understand yourself. If you're not the big risk taker, don't take the big risks. If you are a little bit of a risk taker, get out there and take a risk. Because what's the worst thing that could happen? You hit rock bottom and you got to build it back up again.
And that's what you.
That's worst case. So, that's.
And that's what you should compare stuff. A sidebar here. When you make decisions like that, that's what you should compare. Most people think, what's probably going to happen that's bad, and compare it to what's the best possible outcome. What's the goal? Do it the opposite. Like, what's just a realistic goal, and compare it to what's the worst case. Most times you'd be like, well, those aren't that far apart. That's okay. I'd rather risk it big to get that at the off chance this happens. As opposed to you're just too scary. Like, because obviously that's not going to happen. This way big goal is probably not going to happen right away, and it's going to seem like a failure. That's why just be realistic. And then think of the worst case. And what is the worst case? Seriously.
In turn, the same thing.
Face your fear.
The same thing in the worst thing that could happen, most times isn't going to just chop your knees out from under you and make you crumble. Like, it's going to be the same as it takes time to grow. Sometimes it takes time to come back down.
And when you really think about it, and, peel back the onion, it's like, oh yeah, that sucks. But it's all right. If that happens, it's okay. I'll rebound. I'll learn from it. But
Yeah.
If this happens, just this realistic thing is a really good deal, you know?
Yeah.
And that's just something. Podcasting's like that. I mean, not that there's a whole lot of risk in it, I guess. I mean, not financially. You can be if you want to invest a lot of money. But I know quite a few people who want to do podcasts and who kind of started podcasts. They've recorded episodes. And the risk and fear there is, you know, I don't like how I sound here. I'm being too vulnerable. I'm opening myself up. You know, people aren't going to like this. And then like, well, I don't want to post this episode yet because I don't know when I can do another one. What if it's 2 months before I do another one? And people are, you know, I tell you, some of the best podcasts I listen to, I'll check in on them. 3 months later, there's he's got an episode up.
We were really critical of ourselves when we started like that. Of, okay, if we're going to do this, we got to do it every week. We got to plan this. Are we ready for that? And we tried to, and we did a lot. And more recently, we haven't. We just, with busy work schedules, busy kid life schedules, we don't get to do it. But when we do put it out, it's really appreciated by the listeners. And they give us that feedback and let us know.
Well, because we would say, okay, let's put pressure on ourselves and say, see you next week at the end of every show or whatever. And then people would start messaging us when we aren't like, okay, yeah, we do this. But I don't get messages. I don't know if you don't really get messages. It's like, oh, it's all right. They're not. No. You know, there was a big break in between moving into studios, but that's obvious reasons. But, you know, and people know we'll get in it, and they know when an episode posts that it's just going to be pure gold.
Yeah.
Well, at least some people we've talked to.
The way we're talking, like, about that fear, right? Our fear factor, or with a podcast, is failure. But what's the greatest thing that could come out of it? And for us, the greatest thing was just to touch just one person's life. Like, just to change one person's entrepreneurial career. And we feel like we're doing that.
Yeah.
You know, we feel like we're being helpful to the people that listen, to the group that follows us, that we're being helpful. And to me, that's it. Like, that's the icing on the cake. That's the apex of this whole thing.
Yeah, and mine was more, you know, like, obviously we're not going to have thousands of listeners right out of the gate. You're like, I don't want to have that goal set way up here and, you know, always be working towards that. But, you know, honestly, okay, worst case, to continue to do this podcast week after week, or however often we do it, how many people really could be listening for me to get satisfied? I said, heck, if we had 10 constant listeners, you know, I'd be fine. You know, we're way past that now. And, you know, like, man, I was fine with 10, you know. It's been a journey doing this, you know, and we kind of started faking till you make it type situation, but it made us read more motivational books and business books, and, you know,
we would fake it while we were learning, while we were self-teaching how to do this. I mean, we learned a lot about audio and video and electronics.
I mean, I remember an episode saying, okay, we're good. When are we going to get to video? And you're like, okay, calm down, slow down. And now how many other episodes we have on YouTube now, and we don't have a soundboard anymore. We're doing everything through the computer and the mic. And, you know, stuff we thought, that's just a given. That's impossible. You know? And me getting in Toastmasters, which was something I was looking at for a while, for a couple of years. I just didn't want to make the jump, and I don't know what made me do. I started after we started the podcast. So I don't know if I got more comfortable doing it, or I just took our own advice subconsciously. I don't know. But, you know, that's part of investing in myself, and whether it's helped with this or this helped with that, you know, it doesn't matter. I mean, I'm reading a lot more than I was a year and a half ago or a year ago. You know, we're doing this and learning because we're doing research and learning stuff to try to be experts, and there's just a byproduct of that. Yeah. And, you know, I've learned a lot more just around business than I did, because at first it's like, I don't think I know enough about business, you know. So we just research the crap out of something and say, okay, I know enough about this to talk about it.
Yeah, you know, and like I said at the beginning of the show, that week after week, like the things we go throughout the week, and then we talk, it's like, man, you know what? This is good content. This is good information we can put out there that people can use. And I think that there's a lot of times that we were thinking, and a lot of people do this, is they don't think that their information's good enough. but you don't know who's going to take that information, who needs to hear that information that you think is minuscule, that to them, that's exactly what they needed to hear.
Who's your audience? I mean, Mark Cuban and Elon Musk aren't going to get anything out of this podcast.
Maybe not.
You don't know. My thing is, I'm not telling them anything they don't already know, and if they were listening, they'd be like, I don't know about that. But, just local business, small business owners, entrepreneurs, maybe they have a passion in one thing and that's just what they're focused on. There's other parts of the business they don't think about, or like we said, we know specifically there's people that are just going along with the flow, and we motivated them. They didn't maybe not have learned anything educationally from us, but we motivated them. And just how many times do you watch YouTube videos and you're not really learning anything, but it's in your wheelhouse and you're just like, I just enjoy watching this. This guy speaks my language. And maybe that's it. Maybe you're not listening to us for an educational purpose. You're just bouncing ideas back and forth, motivating us. And a lot of our listeners are small business owners and entrepreneurs, and they're in contact with us and tell us their thoughts. And I would lie if I didn't say that we haven't had episodes inspired by those comments, but that's just how it goes. And I didn't need college for any of this.
Nope, you're absolutely right.
In fact, I went to a trade school. I don't know that it taught me everything here, but we would not be doing this podcast if I didn't go to broadcasting school. Which in and of itself, you wouldn't need to be on radio. And a lot of radio guys did go to the same school I did. They're like, that was just a joke.
Always,
it wasn't for me because I got a lot of experience and job placements to internships. What didn't work out for me was I didn't know you had to work for free for a decade to be in the industry, and then you get like a $40,000 a year job. And it's very... it fluctuates a lot. You're not going to keep your job a lot. Like, you don't start your radio career till you've been fired 3 times. So, but I've had the pleasure of working a lot of online radio. Podcasting is kind of in its infancy when I started, and that's kind of where everything went. I worked at a couple of radio stations on promotions teams, and it's taught us a lot, where it molded into broadcasting football games, to online radio shows, to working for an online radio station and doing our own thing, and then to a podcast. That's lots of time. I mean, was it been 12 years since I went to broadcasting school? And put a percentage on it, but most of that time I've been working on something. Radio, online radio, promotions team, sports writing, something in media, podcasting. But it hadn't just been a constant flow. There's been a lot of business ideas. Nick's Entertainment Radio, broadcasting football games. A lot of times it's like I got burnt out. It wasn't working out what I thought it was. I stopped doing it for a few months. And I started doing something else. Honestly, this podcast has probably been the longest running specific thing I've done. That's just how things work. It's brought us as far as this, and I'm thankful for my education. Going to that trade school, and if I hadn't married my wife at 22 and had a kid at 23, I at least would have done it on this. Well, I kind of still do it on the side, but I probably would have stuck with promotions teams, and who knows, maybe I'd be doing something on the radio right now. I wouldn't be making what I'm making now unless I was, the morning drive lead anchor or lead host. But there's not a lot of money in it unless you're,
big name
Billy the Kid, or Russ Martin, God rest his soul, or I don't know if you remember Tom Likas. He's out of California, but he had a show here. And you remember he was at that concert we went to, Bowling for Soup concert, 105.3, when it was before sports station. Anyways, but that's the experience I got. I went to college. I would tell you as much positive things as I did about that. I mean, I spent a good amount of money on broadcasting school, but I can't say I'm making a ton of money in investment
because
from it.
But
but we would not be doing this right now.
No,
if I would
you're right.
Broadcast.
No, we wouldn't have had the ability, and sometimes that's what it takes, is that motivation that we want to give people with what we're learning, to get them into it. Because how many people wouldn't start a podcast because, well, they just don't know how. They don't know what it takes. And
don't get me wrong, I didn't learn all that stuff in broadcasting school, but I learned enough to do this, and then do this, and then do this, and help with
at least have the confidence
the technical
to be able to
parts
start
of our brother. And we just do this and this and this and this, and we just learned little bits of stuff that would have never, that match would have never been lit. The spark would have never been made without that experience.
So, anyone, if you have any questions about the podcast, any questions about starting your own podcast, reach out to us. All the information is below. Don't forget, book your water slides with Hawks Event Rental Services.
Yeah, and if you want to try this right here, let me know. I can't sell it to you. I don't have a license or whatever. You need permits.
Come sit in the studio with us and have a sip.
Let you have some for free. And we usually do product reviews. We're behind on those, I know. We've been way busy. We got a bunch of them coming up.
Stuff coming through the pipes, so just hang tight on that.
So until our next show, I'm Ashton.
And I'm Tony.
Invest in yourself.
See you.